What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we have a lot to do to finish up this G56 swap. Now if you haven't, you should probably watch the previous two videos on how we got to the point where we're at now. But we have a list of some random stuff we've got to finish up today. Random but very important. So we're going to start tackling one item off that list, and by the end of the video the goal is to drive the truck. So let's see what we can do. All right, so the first thing we need to do, I've got the shifter mocked up in here. So here it is, and this is the stock G56 shift boot that I'm not gonna use. All right, so with the console down like this, if I go into any of the gears where I have to come down, it hits onto the console just barely. And there's reverse. So we need to adjust this up just a little bit. Pull this boot up so you can see. So what we're gonna do, we're actually gonna take a little bit of bend out of this till it's coming up like this, and I'm probably gonna take most of this bend out right here. So I don't have a bench vise, so we're gonna go to my buddy's house, use the bench vise on his work truck, and try and bend this. We'll come back in, mock it up, and see how it is, and go from there. Shouldn't be too hard. All right guys, there it is. I ended up just leaving this bend in here. I took about 15 degrees out of that bend, and now you can see I like where it's at. You go to any gear that's to the bottom, there's plenty of room. Reverse right there. So there we go, that's all I needed to do with that. All right, it's time to get the pedals put in the truck so we can get some hydraulics hooked up, get the wiring finished. But before we get the pedals put in, we need to do a couple things. So first of all, the pedals you're gonna need are first gen hydraulic pedals, the clutch and the brake pedal assembly. Now, normally this assembly has a bolt coming off of here for the rod from the clutch master cylinder to hook to. Mine didn't. So I went to the hardware store, I bought this shoulder bolt right here. So what I'm gonna do is actually grind this paint off on this side a little bit and weld this bolt in here. All right, we have our new shoulder bolt welded on there. That's good to go. Another thing about these, they didn't come with the pads on the pedals, and these are actually really hard to find. But someone messaged me or commented on a video a couple weeks ago and tipped me off to these from Vans Auto. I'll put a link in the description below. 20 bucks for the set, and they're quality rubber pedal pads, so they fit perfect. Thank you, whoever that was, I can't even remember. So awesome product. Also, you're gonna need one of these. These are really hard to find used, and people ask a lot of money for them. But Charlie Pitcher at New Era Performance at Metal by Charlie on Instagram, he builds these and sells them. This was 75 bucks. I bought the hardware for it, but totally worth it. They're really hard to find, and people think they're worth a fortune. So the quality of Charlie's work, it's totally worth it. So we're gonna need this too. So the first thing we're gonna do is take the brake pedal out. I'm just gonna take it out, and then on the bench, I'll show you how you'd have to do it. There's just no room for a camera in there, and I can show you on the bench. So let me get that out, and then I'll show you how to do that. All right, so we got that out. It wasn't hard, it was a pain in the butt, but it wasn't hard. So let me show you how you do it here on the bench. So the first step, there's a clip on here that holds the rod to the brake master cylinder. So you just pop this clip off. That's step number one. Then you'll see a bolt and a nut up here holding this to the bracket that's right by the steering column. So you just have to take those off. Those are both 10 millimeter. Take those off, and then you just have to slide this rod toward the center of the truck. And mine wasn't too bad. I got a big screwdriver and kind of pried this a little bit and then just wiggled it, and it finally came out. But that's all there was to it. Pretty simple. So now, before we put the new pedals in, we need to put this in for our clutch master cylinder. So let's see if I can get a view of it to show you where we're going to install it. I'll get it installed and then I'll show you it all installed in there. All right, right there you can see the hole in the firewall where that clutch master cylinder rod's going to come through. So on this bracket right up here, it's really hard to see, but there's already 4 holes there for this mounting bracket to bolt right up to that. So it shouldn't be hard, just gonna be tight, but I'll get it all mounted up and then I'll show you. So there you can see it right there, all mounted up. Gotta loom up some of this wiring still, but it went in there. So we're gonna put our clutch brake pedal assembly in there. It's gonna be the same thing, except we're gonna have to feed this pedal through the rod when we put it back in. Nothing too difficult. So let's get that in and then we will get our hydraulics hooked up to it. All right guys, so making good progress. We got the pedals in, the brake pedal's hooked up, the clutch pedal is not hooked up, but it's mounted in, everything's good to go. So at this point, we need to talk about hydraulics. So here is the set of hydraulics that I picked up. It's for a 98 to 2002 Dodge. It is a Valair hydraulic set, and here it is. It's nice, it's the upgraded one with the stainless flexible line on it. It's got the adjustable rod for the master cylinder, and it has a remote reservoir. Really nice setup. We are going to have to make some modifications to this to get it to work. So first of all, here is a hydraulic setup for a first gen, and I honestly think, I'm not positive, and no one said this when I did my research on this project, but I actually think a first gen setup would work, but I'm not positive. So here's what we need to do. Even though we have this adjustable rod on our new setup, it's still too long. So if we hold these, kind of compare them, we need to take, from what I've read online, it's 1.375 inches off of this. So I'm probably going to take that right from this section so we don't mess with the threaded part and we don't mess with this part for the neutral safety switch. But I've also read that once we shorten this rod, the neutral safety switch won't fit on it. But there's a workaround for that. I'll show you guys about that. All right, guys, so I dropped it off at my buddy's house and he just did the job himself. But let me show you. So we took 1 3/8 out of the rod. Now, if we compare it here to the stock first gen rod, at this point, it's exactly the same, but we've got some adjustability still. So right where we need it. So we're going to put this grommet on from the stock one, and then we'll install the master cylinder. All right, that was easy. So now we're going to hook the rod up to the little shoulder bolt that I put on the pedal assembly. One important thing that the instructions say is when you hook that rod up, if you have an adjustable rod, make sure the rod is in the all the way shortened position when you hook it up to the pedal. So I've got it all the way shortened, I'll hook it up and then we'll go from there. All right, the rod is hooked to the pedal, adjusted to the fully shortened position. So now what we have to do is route the slave cylinder down to the bell housing. All right, so on the slave cylinder, you'll see there's this little strap with a cap on it. The instructions say do not mess with this, don't take it off, okay? So what you do, we're gonna install it and then get the nuts all tightened down, and then I'll explain to you why we didn't take this off. So we got that all installed. Now at this point, what we need to do is we need to adjust the rod and make sure it's where it needs to be. Couple things, you guys noticed I did not put the neutral safety switch back on. With the adjustable rod shortened, this doesn't fit, okay? A couple options from there. We're gonna do one option, I'll tell you about another one. You need the neutral safety switch if you want your cruise control to work. If your cruise control doesn't need to work, mine doesn't work right now, so I'm gonna do this option first. I'm just gonna ground out that wire. I'll show you how to do it. If you need your cruise control to work and you can't get the neutral safety switch in there like I can't, there's a way to wire it onto a relay so that when you actually start the truck, it thinks the neutral safety switch is engaged. Then you take it from the start position to the run position and it just runs like normal. So there's a way to do that. Now, the reason I mentioned all that, back to the little strap thing on the tip of the slave cylinder rod. So the proper thing to do if you've got the neutral safety switch installed is to push the pedal in and make sure the truck starts. If you push the pedal all the way in and the truck won't start, you need to lengthen the rod. So do you just keep trying that, turn it out a full turn each time? As soon as the truck starts with the clutch in, you know the neutral safety switch is calibrated where it needs to go, the rod is the length it needs to be, and that's how you adjust it. We don't have a neutral safety switch, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna adjust the rod length based more on when the clutch engages and disengages. So the problem with that is we can't drive it yet, so we may have to do some of those adjustments once we have the drive shafts in. But for now, we're just gonna hook the rod up to the pedal, leave it like that. Once we push the pedal the first time, that strap thing is gonna snap off. It's gone. I don't know what happens to it, but that's what the instructions say. So for now, we're just gonna leave it like that. Once we get the drive shafts in, we'll do a little more adjusting on that. All right, so now we need to mount the reservoir. Now in a normal first gen, the reservoir, the bracket has a slant and it mounts right under here so the hood can clear. This one doesn't have a slant, so I think what I'm gonna do is route it under there and just mount it right there flush to the firewall. There she is, all mounted up. Nice and secure. Pedals are installed, hydraulics are installed. We got a few more things to tidy up before we're ready to drive it, so let's keep knocking stuff out. All right, so the next thing we need to install is a product I picked up. This is a TDS PTO cover made for the G56. It has a zero leak gold plug, but that's not why I bought it. I bought it because coming from an automatic transmission, I have a transmission temperature sensor. So this comes tapped for the transmission temperature sensor. And it looks really nice. Nice billet aluminum. So we're gonna put this on. It's fairly easy. Just black RTV around here, put the bolts in, tighten them down to a couple foot-pounds, and then an hour later we'll come back out. The torque spec on these is 43 foot-pounds. So this should be pretty easy. All right, guys, we got that mounted up. That looks super nice. I got the transmission temperature sensor plugged in. Got it all good to go. So we're gonna let that RTV cure for 24 hours now, and then we will be ready to add our fluid. All right, we got the clutch and brake pedal in. We got the hydraulics in. Now we're gonna try and address the wiring. So first thing we're gonna do is put the wiring that is very simple, very easy. We've got the vehicle speed sensor right here, so we're gonna put this in and we're gonna plug the plug into the vehicle speed sensor. The 4-wheel drive indicator light is on the transfer case, so that plug will plug right back in where it was. So let's do those real quick, and then we'll talk about the reverse lights and the neutral safety switch. All right, we got the vehicle speed sensor installed and it's plugged in. And then we got the 4-wheel drive indicator light plugged in. Again, that's on the transfer case, so nothing changes there. All right, so now we have 3 plugs left. Now these 2 plugs right here, we're not gonna use. This is the overdrive temperature sensor. We don't have overdrive anymore. And this is for the overdrive solenoid, which we don't have overdrive anymore. So those 2, we're just gonna bundle up, tuck them out of the way, they'll be gone. This switch, it's kind of a circle. It's got 3 prongs in it. This switch is very important. So we've got 3 wires here. We've got a purple wire with a black tracer. We've got a white wire, and in the middle we've got a brown wire with a yellow tracer. So the 2 outside wires are the wires we're going to use for the reverse light switch. The middle brown wire with yellow tracer, this is for an automatic, the neutral safety switch. But for now, we're going to cut these 2 wires off. I'll show you the plug I bought and the part number. There's a female plug in the G56 that we're going to plug it right into, and that should be pretty easy. All right, guys, so I got the reverse light switch hooked up, so let me show you how I wired it up and a little modification that I had to make to the switch. The switch comes with 2 purple wires and 2 orange wires. I just used one of each, but I put the purple wire going into the right side of the switch and the orange one going into the left side. And then as far as the stock harness, I connected the purple wire to the purple wire and the orange wire to the white wire. We are in business. The reverse lights work, everything works. All right, so I got the neutral safety switch wire figured out. So I showed you that 3-prong plug. This is the brown wire with the yellow tracer. So all I did was cut it off the plug, soldered it and heat shrunk it to another wire. I just got a black wire, and then I ran it up into the engine compartment, and I basically just ran it up here and ran it to one of my ground posts on my external fuse block, so it's grounded. So I've tested that. Before I did that, the truck would not even attempt to start. Now that that's done, the truck will attempt to start. So now you have to be careful with how we've got this set up for now. It will start in gear, it'll start out of gear, it'll start with the clutch in, with the clutch out. Doesn't matter, it's gonna start if you hit the key to turn it on. So you have to be careful. I may wire it up a little bit different down the road. I'll probably wire it to a relay to basically trick the PCM into thinking the neutral safety switch is engaged when I push the clutch in and fire it. Otherwise it won't fire, and then the cruise control will work as well. But right now my cruise control doesn't even work, so I'm not even gonna worry about wiring it up that way. So this is how I'm gonna do it for now. Down the road we may change it. So anyways, we got all that hooked up. I'm gonna re-lume all this harness, get it all cleaned up, but we're making progress. So I think we're ready to put the fluid in the trans. So I'm gonna show you what fluid I got. All right, so I got the shift tower out so we can put the fluid in right here. Before we do that, I need to talk to you about something with the shift tower that's pretty important. So here on the spare shift tower, you can see the OE boot that goes on here. Now these boots are known for ripping. For example, here's the one that was on my shifter, and it is already ripped. So the best way to go about actually replacing that boot, and it is necessary, if you don't have a boot on there, you'll get transmission fluid that leaks out and drips all the way down the side of the transmission and onto the ground. So you need that boot. So this is what I picked up. It's a CV boot. I don't even know what vehicle it's for. I'll put a part number in the description, but this will fit on here. Very nicely, just like that. And then we've got this end right here. So this CV boot came with the CV clamps. There's a special tool to clamp these that I don't actually have. but the tool looks very much like a tile nipper. So I've got a tile nipper, so we're gonna see if that'll work to clamp this down. All right, here we go. We're gonna see if the tile nipper works. Heyo! Tile nipper worked. It's on there nice and tight. Give it another squeeze for good measure. Yeah, that's not coming off. Now for the upper one, I'm actually just gonna use a hose clamp. There we go. So we have that new boot on there. That's going to work good. These hold up a lot better than the OE boot. So that's just a little tip for you. Even if you're not doing this on a conversion, if you have a G56 in your truck, this is a great upgrade. All right, we got the shift tower ready to put back in, but we need to fill this transmission with fluid. This is a heavily debated topic. Here's the fluid I went with. I contacted Hot Shot Secret. They have a formula specifically for the G56. I've done a lot of research, a lot of reading. Honestly, it feels like the opinions are all over the board on what fluid you should run in these. Their fluid is an SAE 50, which Mercedes recommends Delvac Mobile Synthetic 50. So this is somewhat comparable to that. I know other people run AMSOIL fluid. I know people run ATF +4, which is what Dodge actually calls for in this transmission, which is honestly complete garbage. Nobody should be running ATF +4 by itself in this transmission. So we're gonna run this. The transmission calls for 6 quarts. Everywhere I've read says to overfill it by 1 quart to help with the rollover noise. So that's what we're gonna do. We got 2 gallons, which is 8 quarts, so we'll put 7 quarts in there. Also, we need to fill up the transfer case. So I got some of Hot Shot Secret SAE 75W90. So we're gonna throw that in the transfer case and we should be good to go. So let's get it loaded in there. All right, the fluid's in. I got the shift tower, just put a light coat of RTV on it, and we're gonna put it in. All right, so the G56 comes with 2 shift boots, kind of inner seal boots is what I guess they're called. So this one goes on first, then this one. I want to use this one, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to yet. But this boot, I'm definitely going to be able to use. So here's what I'm going to do. Now, the reason for these 2 boots, probably one of the most important reasons, is right here on this back upper right portion of the shift tower is a vent. So if you don't have this boot on and you just have your leather shift boot, you'll get ATF fumes or whatever fluid you put in your transmission, you'll get those fumes coming up through here. So this boot keeps those fumes out. So what I'm gonna do is put this on and then I'm gonna kind of wedge this portion down under the floor pan. So it won't be necessarily mounted. I'm not gonna bolt it in or anything, but this sits very tight onto the shift tower, so it should be just fine. There we go. That fell in perfectly. I'm gonna go underneath and make sure there's no wrinkles in it or anything. Not that it matters, but that's gonna stay in there nicely. All right, one more thing we need to knock off the list. Some of you guys caught on to this, but the torque spec for the yoke bolts on the transfer case is not 17 Ugga-Duggas. It's actually between 130 and 150 foot-pounds. I just didn't torque it down because I couldn't do it on the ground because the shafts would just spin. But now that it's in the truck, I'll throw it in gear. We'll get that torque down between 130 and 150 foot-pounds. Some of you guys caught it, but we're gonna do that. All right, guys, I finally got the last piece of the puzzle. So the drive shaft is here. So here's the drive shaft, the main tube, and this is an extended cab long bed drive shaft or a crew cab short bed drive shaft. They're the same thing. So the main tube stays the same. The front tube, this is usually 11 inches from the factory. I had to have them add 1 inch. So from weld to weld, it needs to be 12 inches. And I'll go throw it in. If it doesn't fit, I'll let you guys know, but if it does fit, let's just throw it in and go drive it. Alright guys, there we have it. That was amazing. I can't wipe the smile off my face. This thing runs perfectly. It's super fun to drive. For those of you wondering, the drive shaft length was perfect. It went in perfectly. Another question, the 4-inch diamond eye exhaust, no modifications needed. It went right back in, so I didn't even show that. So next video, we're going to take this thing and do a lot more driving with it. I'm going to take you guys along for the ride, and we're going to talk about the cost breakdown of what this swap cost. So look forward to that in the next video. After that, we've got a turbo coming for this. We've got injectors, and then we are on to our next project. So that project will be really fun. It is a nice truck. We're going to do a cool build with it, full engine build, everything. So look forward to that. Thanks for your support, and we will see you guys in the next video.